Our film starts with a girl walking around. She heads to a carnival where she meets up with her two friends. The conversation between them is playful, other than there being someone they really don't like named Charles, and they wish that someone would off him. That's when the guy appears. The main girl, Victoria, goes to slap him, and Charles knocks her out. That's when we hear a voice telling him to leave them alone or else, though we never see who the voice belongs to. Victoria wakes up at Alicia's house where Alicia tells her about Mystery Guy saving them, with the gist being they all have a crush on the guy, despite no one really having a clue what he looks like. Eventually Victoria heads home where she goes to lay down, but as she tries to sleep hears Charles in her head taunting her. She heads outside to smoke where a guy in a black trench coat introduces himself as Seth and uses bumming a cigarette as a first move, even though she points out he already has one. He seems to be the guy that ran Charles off, but as they talk he seems pretty dorky, but he does have the superpower of weather prediction via smelling it, which is something women swoon over, I hear. They then head to her place where he's right about a thunderstorm coming. More small talk as we find out that Victoria, who likes to be called Vicky, inherited her beach house from her late mother and doesn't know her father. We also find out Seth is kind of a drifter even though he's also a college student. Victoria then gets a call from Darius that something is wrong with Alicia. She then takes off, but Seth seems to not get the point that she has something to do. When she gets to Alicia's, we then get an ABC after school special moment where we find out Alicia is anorexic. That's when it's revealed that she's a vampire, as Vicky gives her a vial of blood, which she doesn't like. Vicky then lets Alicia bite her arm, which she takes to right away, to the point that she has to pull Alicia off of her. We actually do get to see Alicia's fangs here as she apologizes to Vicky for losing control. Alicia and Vicky then head to the boardwalk where they see two guys get arrested for disorderly conduct. When the cops leave them behind to get someone else, the two girls hop into the back of the police van and feed on the guys. They then leave and the cops act as if seeing two drained bodies are pretty normal for their job, and it's really inconvenient. Back with Seth, his frat buddies are making fun of him for striking out with Vicky. They bet him to go to the sunglasses hut where she said she worked at to get her number, but when he asks the woman behind the counter about Vicky, she says she's never heard of her. That is until Charles shows up to talk to Seth and hypnotizes the clerk to now remember Vicky. Seth tries to walk off, but Charles and his friends, who he calls his horsemen, follow him, stating that they want to be his friends too. The film is seemingly self-aware as Seth's crew calls Charles and his friends the Lost Boys. Seth then gets offended when Charles says he's snapping like a rabid dog, as the film is foreshadowing hard that Seth is probably a werewolf. Charles somehow then talks Seth into going along with him and his buddies where they go to a hiding place to get high. Seth and one of the guys in Charles' crew then get into it where Seth beats the guy down pretty easily and walks away. Back with Vicky and Alicia, they go from after school special to Lifetime movie as the discussion moves on to how each was turned. Alicia is apparently a very new vampire randomly turned on a date with one of Charles' horsemen. Victoria goes into a long story about how her and her boyfriend Jake got turned together and him killing himself out of regret for losing control and killing his friend. The Pink Ranger in her probably on purpose pink bikini then comes over and snuggles with Vicky after the sad story, and we'll just ignore that she didn't ask about anything told to her after the "How were you turned?" We then skip back to the carnival where Darius, Alicia, and Vicky track Seth down. He admits to saving Vicky from Charles and beating up Connor. Side note, Vicky goes in and out of a street accent throughout this movie to the point that it's distracting. Looking her up, the actress is from New York City, so it feels like the street accent is natural and she's trying to cover it up and doing a bad job of sounding like a valley girl. Anyway, Darius and Alicia leave him and Vicky alone to go walk where we again get a sad story. This time it's about her watching her mom die in a car accident. Okay, seems like 90% of her dialogue is just different versions of the Phoebe Cates "Why I Don't Like Christmas" rant from Gremlins. Back with Alicia and Darius, they're having fun until Charles and his crew stop them as they're looking for Vicky. This scene goes around in circles with multiple versions of "Where is Vicky? I don't know," before Charles finally remembers he's a vampire. He then hypnotizes Darius to go away and hypnotizes Alicia to hang out with him and his friends. He then takes her to the Ferris wheel where he hypnotizes her into wanting to feed and to pick someone from where they are. We then get a montage of Charles, Alicia, and his crew feeding on patrons at a water park. Once she wakes up from the hypnosis, she freaks out about being covered in blood and runs off. Charles and his crew then creepily flirt with a group of women, with only the blondes seemingly realizing the guys talking to them are creepy. I mean, they're not even trying to sound non-murdery, but the girls go along with it nonetheless. Charles then shows one of the girls his fangs, and she, being pretty ditzy, still doesn't get it, to the point that he has to tell her she needs to run from him. In between that, we get scenes of Vicky getting a stash from her blood dealer. Eventually, all the girls end up dead as they do the generic drunk falling down horror woman run, and they make the Jean-Luc kid clean it up, who by now is clear is just their human familiar that they treat like dirt. Vicky then wakes up during the day and makes a call to someone who doesn't answer. She heads to Alicia's, so I guess that's who she tried to call, but then hears something on the roof. When she gets up there, she sees Alicia trying to fry herself in the sun. Vicky begs her to drink, but Alicia tells her she just wants it all to stop, and we watch her shrivel into ash. Hey, just like her boyfriend did. We then see Vicky and Darius do a ceremony spreading her ashes with grunge music playing in the background. We could stop the movie now, but at some point there might be a plot where something happens other than that one group is depressed and one group are a-holes. But it's not now, as Vicky and her uncle then have a talk on the beach at night where he points out her trust issues. Apparently Uncle Jake here, who we've not seen up to this point, has been watching the movie with us because he knows everything that's happened up to it. This is where the Cold Hearts movie title comes from, as Victoria talks about hers thanks to everyone she gets close to being vampires with clinical depression who like to fry like an egg. After the pep talk from old Unc to not be afraid to get close to people, Victoria heads to the frat bonfire and asks where Seth is. They tell her where to find him, and she heads to his hotel room. We get more hints that he's a werewolf as he talks about being protective of his territory and see him having giant scratches on his arm. Anyway, we get two more sad stories as after Vicky tells Seth about Alicia, he goes into how he and his girlfriend were attacked by an animal and how he made it and she didn't. The amount of forced drama in this film is ridiculous, to be honest. Every 5 minutes of this movie is basically, "Hi, how are you? Well, let me tell you how my great aunt fell into a wood chipper." The next day, Jean-Luc tracks down Seth, and we get tragic story number 1001. This time it's about how Vicky killed Charles' new girlfriend after the two got into it or something, and he's warning Seth that Charles wants to kill him in revenge to get to her. He then states he's warning Seth because he's tired of the life he has of being told what to do by a-hole vampires, confirming my earlier hunch that he is not one. That night, Vicky finds Seth and is all flirty. This is probably the only time she's in a good mood in the entire film, other than the very beginning, and it lasts roughly 2 minutes before Charles shows up. Charles kills Jean-Luc when he accidentally outs himself that he talked to Seth, and then challenges Seth to a fight. Charles then fangs out, and Seth wolfs out. Charles tries to get his crew to attack Seth, but they run off in fear. Charles and Seth have a knockdown, drag-out WWE hardcore match until Vicky interferes and just super murders Charles, pretty easily, Mortal Kombat fatality style, making you wonder why she just didn't do that an hour and a half ago. After he dies, his crew I guess go back to human as they stop being hostile, and Vicky awkwardly spins in circles looking for Seth before just sitting down and giving up. Though one of Charles' boys jumping on his dead ashes in the background is pretty funny. The next day, Vicky shows up to Seth's friends to ask where he is. They're super hostile since they've seen she was a vampire, but she then hypnotizes them to forget, and they politely tell her they don't know where he is. She then heads home where she finds him on her back porch. He shows her his bruises from the fight, and he comments on her sunburn, which, side note, how is she not crispy when the film clearly establishes vampires die in the sunlight? The film ends with a mid-credit scene of two cops being comic relief and cracking jokes on each other until they see the carnage of the fight. Here's then confirmed the black cop, who was the same one from earlier that didn't act too surprised about the prisoners being mauled by vampires, was absolutely aware of the vampires existing, while the other cop with him was not and faints from the sight. So there it is, a Lost Boys knockoff that was more of a downer than anything. Amy Jo Johnson as evil Kimberly in the Power Rangers movie was probably a lot more enjoyable. But hey, you do get her in a bikini, so that's something. Thanks for watching. If you like these recaps, please leave a like and subscribe and hit the bell icon to know every time I update. There is now an option to be a channel member where you'll get access to exclusive recaps from late night vampire catalogs like Showtime, Cinemax After Dark, USA Up All Night, and much more. If you want to help my channel grow, please check out my Patreon, where members can get exclusive content that can't be uploaded on YouTube, along with download options. Link is in the description.